Los Angeles Rams at the Carolina Panthers. It's kind of unique how this whole division thing works out. I don't mind the NFL divisions, but I think you keep the divisions and then it's record after that going into the playoffs. Because to me, it just doesn't seem right for the Panthers to host a playoff game. Like, what do you think about that?
You know, it does feel weird when you always get that like 500 or below team that
Yeah.
just has way more losses than the team they're playing, but they're hosting the game. And, you know, you've seen it with the Seattle and the Beastquake, the Tim Tebow year against the Steelers. But, you know, I think you have to allow it. It doesn't happen as often as some people make it out to seem when they argue that they should get rid of this. Because my thing is, it's like, if we're going to get rid of, you know, teams winning divisions, hosting a playoff game, then we might as well just get rid of the divisions. Like, what benefit does having a division have on a team other than you play a team more often than any other team because they're closer to you, so it eases on travel? Like, there's no reward for winning your division other than people say, oh, you get an automatic playoff bid. But it's like, dude, if you win your division, 99.9% of the time, you're, like, already in the playoffs. So, like, the auto bid doesn't work. Maybe in some years, like, a Carolina won't get in because I remember last year Seattle was, like, 10-7, didn't make the playoffs. So maybe one of those years it doesn't happen. But I'm all for rewarding your division and you winning. It makes divisions, it makes rivalries, it makes those division games mean more, right? Like Philly,
Yeah.
like Steelers versus Baltimore. It's division rivals, but that game meant a lot more because taking to the playoffs was on the line, but they were going to host that game the following week in Pittsburgh. So I think you remove that, you remove a lot of the novelty and the charm and uniqueness that the NFL has.
Well, like you said, like that Steelers Ravens game, it just doesn't happen. And then you got Bears Packers. I mean, put aside all the great storylines, that's the game I want to watch. Saturday night, division rivalry, you never know what's going to happen. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Rams Panthers, to me, it's pretty clear who I have picked to win this game. This is one of the more obvious ones. Now, I have nothing against Carolina here, but the Rams outright are just the more talented, more experienced team. Let's look at the Rams first. Just a few quick stats for everybody. We'll outline this for every team. 12-5, they finished second in their division. First in points per game this year with 30.5. 10th in points against at 20.4. Steve, here are a few of my thoughts on the Rams going into the playoffs. Their strength is going to be the offensive firepower. Matthew Stafford, arguably the MVP this year, definitely a front runner for the award. 4,700 yards passing, 46 touchdowns. He's had a phenomenal season, and his playoff resume when he arrived in LA, it's been pretty elite. He's won a Super Bowl there. He's shown us he can do it on the biggest stage. You got Puka Nacua, your do-it-all receiver. He pretty much does everything for the offense. Goes deep, over the middle. You can count on him to move the chains. And then Devontae Adams has been huge for the red zone production. He leads the NFL in receiving touchdowns at 14. And you'll see when they get down to the 1 yard line, there's no handoffs. It's just a red zone fade to Devontae Adams, which I love personally. I love the play if you have the personnel to do it. Their weakness is their secondary. To me, I don't think their secondary is very good, despite what some stats might say, what might not say. That's a weakness on this team, but I do think that their pass rush can be good enough with Verse and Young to put pressure on the QB and kind of mask that weakness, which is done at points this year. I think the X factor in this game for this Rams team is Byron Young. He leads the team with 12 sacks on the season. That's inside the top 10 on the year. Him and Jared Verse, like I said, that's going to be the focal point of this defense, especially against Bryce Young, inexperienced QB, to kind of get him uncomfortable early on. And we know Bryce Young, Steve, when he gets out of rhythm, it's really hard to reel him back in. And when you do, it's fourth quarter and the game's already over. So I'm comfortably taking the Rams. I'll talk about the Panthers right away. But what are your thoughts on the Rams for the entire playoffs, I guess, but this game specifically?
Well, in this game, I think it's pretty obvious that I'm taking the Rams. I don't think anyone outside of Carolina is picking Carolina because the Rams, they're a Super Bowl team, right? I mean, you're talking about the number one scoring offense, like you said. They got this quarterback who's arguably the MVP in the league. He's won a Super Bowl alongside of his head coach. They're going to have more experience than anyone on that field in Carolina, and they get Devontae Adams back, the guy that you said they could throw all those cheat code goal line fades to. So, you know, like, the X factor is their defense. You can pick whatever player. I'm just going to say the defense as a whole, particularly their secondary because it hasn't been good, and their special teams. I mean, they fired their special teams coordinator a couple weeks ago because he's giving them problems. They did lose in Carolina to this team, so I'm not going to act like that didn't happen. That's on the Rams' resume, even though I do think the Rams are one of the best teams in the NFL. They gave up 31 points to Bryce Young, 3 touchdowns from Bryce Young. That is absolutely unacceptable. So if the Rams, whoever it is, if Verse wants to have a big sack game, if any of their corners just want to hold on to Tet McMillan's jersey and not let him break for a 60-yard go route, they reduce 31 points to 20. This Rams high-powered offense isn't going to have any problems winning this game then.
Well, I think it's important to note, if I was arguing for Carolina, I'd simply say the Rams finished the season 3-3. They're by no means the hottest team in the NFL to finish the year, although Week 18 was pretty big for them. Stafford stat pads for his MVP, 4 TDs. That's cool. They haven't necessarily been the greatest to close out the season. The Atlanta game, another one, you're just scratching your head. For Carolina to win the game, they need Matthew Stafford to turn the ball over multiple times, and Bryce Young has to play lights out pretty much for the entire playoff run. And those are 2 really big asks for both quarterbacks. Bryce Young under the bright lights, who's been the most inconsistent QB all year long, and then the MVP or potential MVP Matthew Stafford to have a piss-poor performance or turn the ball over. And I just don't see that happening. It is important to note, though, Steve, like you said, the Panthers did take them down in Week 13, I want to say. When you look at Bryce Young in that game, 75% completion percentage, 200 yards, 3 TDs, no interceptions, 147 passer rating. I mean, it was unreal. His best game of the year. If he can replicate that, they got a shot for sure, but I'm still taking the Rams unless there's some miracle that goes on in Carolina. I do think Tats had a great year. He's up there for Offensive Rookie of the Year, although I feel like the awards are always geared towards quarterbacks, so Shuck and Dart will probably be up there leading the award race. I do think the X factor for the Panthers is Rico Dowdle. He's such a versatile running back, such a versatile threat for this team. His stats on the year, over 1,000 rushing yards plus 300 receiving yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, another receiving touchdown. He's had a phenomenal year. From weeks 5 to 6, he averaged 236.5 yards per game. And the Panthers outscored their average points per game by 10 in those games. He is an X factor, and the offense has to run through him, especially with an inconsistent quarterback like Bryce Young. You need to lean on the run game. The defense has been surprisingly all right this season, all things considered. I think they're ranked, I believe, like 18th or 15th in points against. The offense 27th in points for. So clearly the offensive inconsistencies are going to cost them. They have a shot at home, I guess. I'll give them that. But I don't see it, man. Like, do you even see a world where this Panthers team can win multiple games in the playoffs?
Vegas has the line at 10.5. It was at least last time I checked, and that was last night. So that means absolutely no way. When you see 10.5 in the playoffs, that is very unlikely an upset's happening. Yeah. But my X factor in this one is actually Bryce Young. And you kind of talked about it, but I have written in my notes. Panthers have a shot if he has a clean game. What did he have in the game where they did beat the Rams in Carolina? You went down the stats, but 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. Outplayed Matt Stafford, who had 2 picks. So as the inexperienced quarterback, I mean, he's played in some national championships. I'm not going to act like he hasn't played in some bright lights games. But, he's still the younger quarterback compared to Mr. Super Bowl winner on the other sideline. If he can have a clean game where, you can add in Rico Dabble, taking some pressure off his shoulders, but can find Ted on some of those goal balls and taking advantage of the Rams' corners, he can have the 3 touchdown, like 6 incompletions against the Rams' defense. That just lets Bryce Young settle into the game and not feel completely outmatched and overwhelmed by the experience and the IQ in the Super Bowl of the Los Angeles Rams. So I don't think they have a shot, but, nothing's impossible in sports. And these are professional athletes at the end of the day. So they technically have a chance. If they were going to have a chance, it's if Bryce Young looks like the number 1 overall pick and not the guy who got benched for Andy Dalton last season.
Exactly. And you know what? Looking at his stats, Steve, 4 games above an 100 passer rating, 3 games below a 50 passer rating. Like, how much more inconsistent? I saw a comment. It was like, Bryce Young chooses to either be Peyton Manning or Jamarcus Russell. Like, there's no in between. The guy gives you one or the other. It's completely boom bust. But I do think what the offense can do to help him, obviously, get Rico, get Chuba going, get Tet in the mix very early, get him in rhythm. And then on the defensive side, if Derek Brown, Nick Scorton can come out, make a play, they've both had phenomenal years. Maybe it can happen, but again,
the crowd behind it too.
Exactly. Like, that's all I'm giving them. I still think the Rams win this easily. They deserve it for the year they've had, to be a wild card team, to have a little bit of an easier, lighter matchup in the wild card game. I'm taking the Rams